The worst thing about Christmas was the chair at the far end of the table. Mine, it wasn't just a seat. It was a spotlight, a silent witness to every subtle sigh, every tight-lipped smile my mother gave me. A throne of shame reserved for the family's one glaring disappointment, me. Every year, like clockwork, I returned to my childhood home in Vermont. Snow-covered rooftops, twinkling lights, carols humming through the radio. It should have felt like magic. It didn't, it felt like obligation. My siblings always arrived earlier. Elise, my older sister, perfect husband, 2 kids, a labradoodle named Winston, and a Pinterest-perfect life. Mark, the golden child, recently married to a lawyer who somehow also baked gluten-free pies from scratch. Then there was me, Emma, 31, single, still trying to figure it out. Mom didn't miss a chance to remind me. "Emma, you're late," Mom said as I walked in, arms full of gifts, cheeks flushed from the drive and the frost. I smiled, trying to hide the nerves crawling up my spine. Traffic was brutal. Must be easier when there's only one of you," she said, turning back to the kitchen. The words were casual, weaponized, strike one. Later, as the family gathered around the long oak dining table, the same one we carved initials into as kids, I took my usual place. Far left, next to the kitchen entrance. Easy access for me to fetch more napkins or help with dishes. The unmarried daughter's seat. Dinner was a blur of clinking cutlery and polite laughter. Elise's kids performed a Christmas song. Mark talked about his honeymoon in Florence. I laughed in the right places, sipped my wine too quickly, and stared too long at the empty spot on my ring finger. Then came the toast. Dad, as always, raised his glass to family, blessings, and memories. Mom added her own version. "And maybe next year," she said, her eyes locking on mine, "Emma will finally bring someone home so we can stop worrying she'll die alone." The room fell into an awkward hush. Elise looked at her lap. Mark cleared his throat. I forced a laugh. Cheers to dying alone, I guess. No one laughed. Not really. Later, I found myself alone in the kitchen, gripping the counter so tightly my knuckles whitened. The laughter from the dining room grew faint. My heart thudded in my ears. It wasn't about being single. Not really. It was about the performance. Every Christmas, I was the punchline, the exhibit, the disappointing daughter with so much potential, but no prospects. As if being loved by someone else was the only thing that gave me value. I wiped a tear away quickly, hating how easily I still let her get to me. That's when I heard footsteps, and then someone entered the room. I didn't turn right away. I assumed it was Elise or Mark coming to check in. But then I heard a voice I hadn't heard in years. "Still hate the cranberry sauce." My breath caught. I turned. He was leaning against the doorframe, snow still melting in his hair, eyes crinkled with amusement. "Liam," I blinked, certain I was hallucinating. "What, how?" I stammered. He smiled. That same easy grin I remembered from so many winters ago. "Your dad invited me," he said, stepping into the light. "Apparently, your mom forgot to mention it to you." I stared. My mind flooded with memories. Hot cocoa in the treehouse, high school prom, the almost kiss behind the barn. And then the goodbye, him leaving for Europe, me staying behind with dreams I never chased. We hadn't spoken in over 8 years. "What are you doing here?" I finally asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "Dad ran into me at the hardware store last month," he said. "Told me you'd be home for Christmas, said it might be nice to stop by." He studied me for a moment, his eyes softening. "Didn't realize I'd be walking into a war zone, though." I laughed bitterly. "Yeah, welcome to the annual public shaming." He stepped closer. I heard what she said. I looked away. "It's nothing new." "Well, it should be," he said quietly. "That wasn't just rude. That was cruel." I swallowed hard. "You don't have to." "I want to." Silence stretched between us, full of old words unspoken and memories unfinished. I always wondered, he said, what would have happened if I stayed. I looked up at him, the kitchen lights catching the gold flecks in his eyes. Me too. Then, faintly, I heard my mother's voice in the other room, already gossiping about Elise's friend from yoga class, whose daughter just got engaged. Liam stepped forward, closing the space between us. "Can I stay for dinner?" he asked. I stared at him. "Are you sure?" He grinned. "I think I've got a few things I need to say, starting with, your mother is wrong about you." For the first time that night, something warm bloomed in my chest. Not just because of him, but because someone finally saw me, not as a failure, not as a single checkbox left unmarked, but as a person worth choosing, even if I hadn't yet chosen myself. And just like that, the cold chair at the Christmas table didn't feel quite so bitter anymore. Not just for dinner, which he sat through with such charm and ease that even Elise's picky kids offered him extra mashed potatoes, but long after the plates were cleared, long after the polite wine buzz had worn off, and long after my mother finally excused herself with a tight smile and a glass of brandy, the storm outside had worsened. Snow blanketed the driveway like a thick quilt, making leaving impossible. "Guess I'm stuck here," Liam said, glancing at the snowdrift building against the windows. "Guess you are," I replied, unable to hide the warmth curling inside me. We sat across from each other in the quiet of the living room. The Christmas tree lights blinked lazily beside us. The air was full of unsaid things, and not the kind that sting, the kind that tremble on the edge of being too tender to speak aloud. Years ago, we were 17, sitting in the old treehouse behind my parents' barn, legs dangling over the edge, fingers dusted with powdered sugar from the cookies we stole off the kitchen counter. "I'm leaving next year," Liam had said, not looking at me. "Italy architecture program." I had nodded like I was happy for him. Like my chest wasn't cracking open. "You'll do amazing things," I whispered, even though part of me wanted to ask him to stay. But I didn't, because when you love someone at 17, you think real love means letting them go. He reached for my hand, his thumb brushing the inside of my palm. "Write to me, I will," I promised. But I never did, and neither did he. Now, more than a decade later, we sat in the same house as adults who had been broken, built, and broken again by life. And yet something about him felt unchanged. Maybe it was the way he looked at me, not with pity, not with nostalgia, but with recognition. Like he saw the version of me I buried long ago, the one who believed in midnight, sledding, and secret hideouts, and first kisses under firefly skies. He broke the silence first. "You know," he said, "I always thought your mom just didn't like me. I didn't realize she treats everyone like they're auditioning for a life she never got to live." I laughed, but it came out more like a sigh. "She's just like that," I said. "I've spent years trying to understand it, but I think she just needed her life to look perfect, so no one would notice how much she hated herself." He looked at me carefully. "Do you hate yourself, Emma?" The question landed like a stone in water, heavy, disruptive. "No," I said. "Not anymore. Good." A long pause. "Because I don't," he added, "not even a little." We talked for hours. About everything and nothing. About where he went after Italy, France, then Germany, then back to Vermont to take care of his aging grandfather. About the publishing job I left in Boston because it drained every ounce of joy from me. About the small editing projects I do now, working from cafes and my tiny apartment that smells faintly of old books and lavender tea. He asked about the ring on my finger, then immediately apologized. "Habit," he said. "Everyone checks for one these days." "No ring," I replied. "Unless it's the one circling under my eyes from exhaustion." He grinned, still funny. I gave a half smile. Still tired? At some point, my father walked in, eyebrows raised at the sight of us on the couch. "Storm's bad," he said, looking out the window. "Liam, you're staying the night." He said it like a command, not an offer. Then added, "I'll get the guest room ready." It didn't escape me that Dad seemed unusually happy to see him. "You invited him?" I asked once we were alone again. Liam nodded, "Yeah. He said you could use a friend." That caught in my throat. A friend, it sounded so simple, so safe, but something about the way Liam said it, soft, deliberate, made it feel heavier. More like a beginning than a reunion. That night, I stood at the window in my childhood bedroom, arms wrapped around myself as I watched the snow keep falling. It blurred the world into something quiet, gentle. I hadn't noticed the door behind me open. "Can't sleep." Liam's voice came from the hallway. Didn't realize the floorboards still creaked like that. I said without turning. He stepped inside carefully, like he was entering a memory. "Your mom didn't say much to me," he said, but I caught the look. What look? The one that says, "You're not good enough for my daughter." I shrugged. "She says that to everyone, including me." "That's the part I don't get," he said, moving closer. "You're the kind of woman most people hope to become. Kind, brave. You still make people laugh when you're falling apart." I blinked back the sudden rush of tears. "Don't do that." "Do what?" "Say nice things when I've spent years convincing myself they're not true." He stood just behind me now. I could feel his breath. "Then let me help you remember," he said softly. "Not because you need someone to save you, but because you deserve to be seen by someone who isn't blind." I turned to face him. The room was quiet. The snow muffled the world, and in that silence, I saw the truth in his eyes. He hadn't just returned out of nostalgia. He came back to choose me in spite of everything I believed made me unlovable. And somehow that was the sweetest revenge of all. Sunlight filtered through ice, laced windows, and the world outside shimmered like glass. I hadn't slept much. My thoughts were tangled not in worry for once, but in clarity. A strange, fierce calm had settled over me. Something inside had shifted. It wasn't Liam, not entirely. It was the way he'd seen me, the way he still saw me, not as broken or incomplete, but whole, worthy, and the truth was, I was tired of shrinking to fit a chair I'd outgrown years ago. Downstairs, the family was already gathered in the living room, sitting among torn wrapping paper and empty coffee mugs. My mother stood near the tree, wearing her pristine red cashmere sweater, the one she saved for when company was around. Her lips were pursed, her posture perfect, as always. Liam sat beside Dad, who was laughing over some story I couldn't hear. It felt surreal, the old friend now part of this strained holiday tradition. Elise waved me over. "Hey, Em, come open the last few with the kids." I sat, smiled, watched as joy bounced around the room like a golden retriever with no leash. But then it came. Right on schedule, my mother's gaze swept over the group. Her eyes landed on me like frostbite. She spoke lightly, her voice sugar, coated and sharp. "Well, maybe next year, Emma will bring someone real home." The room fell quiet. The children looked confused. Elise froze. Mark bit his lip. And for the first time in my entire life, I didn't swallow it. I didn't laugh it off or lower my eyes or make a joke to ease the tension. I stood, not quickly, not dramatically, just with intention. Liam turned toward me, eyes steady. "Actually," I said, voice even, "I'm glad you brought that up." My mother raised an eyebrow. "Oh, for years, you've made comments like that about me being single. About me being a disappointment, as if my relationship status defines my worth." "Elise?" she started, turning to my sister as if looking for an escape. But I didn't let her. "No," I said firmly. "This isn't about Elise or Mark, this is about you." The room went dead silent. "You've made me feel like the empty chair at every table," I said. Like I was unfinished, like I was behind. Like love, romantic love, was the only form of success you valued. She scoffed. Oh, come on, Emma. Every Christmas you gift-wrap shame and call it tradition. I continued, but this year I'm done accepting it. Her face hardened. So what? You bring a childhood crush home and suddenly think that proves something. Liam stood now, slowly. Actually, he said, stepping beside me, I'm here because I care about Emma, not because she needs me to complete her. My mom opened her mouth, but he didn't stop. She's already complete, has been for a long time. You just haven't noticed because you've been too busy measuring her against your own fears. Silence. Pin, drop silence. I could feel the tension crackling in the air like static. And then my father cleared his throat. I invited Liam, he said, because I thought it was time someone reminded you what kindness looks like. The color drained from my mother's face. Elise reached for my hand and squeezed it gently. Mark looked away, ashamed, maybe, that he'd never spoken up. I took a breath, one that filled my lungs in a way I hadn't allowed for years. I'm not angry, I said quietly. Just free. Later, as the others busied themselves with leftovers and board games, Liam and I stepped outside. The snow crunched beneath our boots. The cold was sharp, but it felt clean, like a reset. You okay? He asked, handing me a mug of cocoa. I think so, I said, actually more than okay. He looked at me for a long moment, then smiled. You were brilliant in there, he said. Like burn the house down brilliant, I laughed. I wasn't trying to burn it down, just open a few windows. Well, you did, he said. And honestly, the air's better already. We stood there, quiet for a moment, then I turned to him. Can I ask you something? Anything. Why now? Why come back? He looked out toward the snow-covered trees before speaking. Because I kept thinking about that night in the treehouse, he said. About all the things I didn't say, about how life got loud and we got lost, but how, somehow, I always ended up circling back to you in my mind. I blinked, the cold wind biting my cheeks. I didn't want to show up in your life just to be someone, he said. I wanted to show up when I was finally ready to be the one. My heart, battered, bruised, and long guarded, did something dangerous and beautiful. It opened. That night, as the lights dimmed and the house grew quiet, I passed by the dining room table again. The same table where I'd sat for years, dreading the seat that was always mine. But this time I paused. And I pulled the chair out, that cold, cursed chair, and I sat down, not to hide, not to shrink, but to take up space I'd long ago earned. I was not a disappointment. I was a woman who had grown through silence, through absence, through every cruel word disguised as concern. And I had finally learned that the most powerful kind of revenge is not rage or rebellion. It's peace. It's knowing who you are, even when the world or your own mother refuses to see it. It's building your own joy and letting it speak for itself. And sometimes it walks back through the door just when you've stopped waiting.